This is Mercy Pilkington for GoodeReader, talking again to Michael Tamblyn from Kobo Books. And we're here in London for the FutureBook event, having a little pre-discussion about what we're going to hear some topics on tomorrow. And so first of all, what I'd like to ask you about is how do you feel Kobo's presence in so many of the different markets, whether it's just ebook distribution or actually promoting writing life there, how do you feel like that's having an impact on reading versus writing?
I think what we're seeing as we move from market to market is that readers are suddenly realizing that they are no longer constrained to their own bookstore anymore. They're no longer constrained to their local bookstore anymore. They aren't even necessarily constrained to their own language anymore. And so that's resulting in people able to read across not just their own national literature, but also those from other countries. If they've come from a different language, they're also maybe able to reach back into the language of a country that they left when they moved. So rather than us having a series of relatively isolated national book markets, we're now starting to see a much more kind of permeable and transferable international book market.
And when you mention that these writers may want to take into consideration foreign language markets, what does an author need to be aware of in terms of looking for translation and foreign rights and looking for these platforms that are going to allow them to develop a global brand, especially if they're self-published?
For us as a global retailer, a global ebook retailer, uh, things that might not bother say a book-selling chain in a particular country become significant issues to us. So, for example, a major bestseller that launches, but only launches in two countries, with release dates that get staggered out over a number of months or over the course of a year, even from market to market. With people able to find out about new books, online, practically instantaneously, that reader in Australia doesn't want to have to wait for 3 or 4 months for that new bestseller to come to them. They expect it to come right away. So, looking at the launches of popular books with a global mentality becomes very important. Um, on the other side, if that's bestsellers at one end of the spectrum, we have self-published authors at the other end, and they too are beginning to realize that they really aren't just writing for their own national market anymore. That the stories that they're telling and the audiences and the fan bases that they're gathering spread across, in some cases, many different countries. And that began with people writing, say, in the United States or in the UK and selling into other English language markets, but has now spread so that those self-published authors are starting to commission their own translators, are starting to get their own new editions made in new languages as they find out where their fans and readers are. So we now have self-published authors who have retranslated themselves in 6 languages and are, in a sense, fully multinational publishers of a handful of books. That's a completely new thing that we've never seen before.
And one of the things that has possibly led to this global expansion of Kobo and the recognition of it is that so many of the people behind Kobo are so accessible. They're constantly speaking on panels or writing articles, participating in interviews and things, but also just utilizing social media like so many authors have found to be valuable. How do you think that has helped the growth of Kobo over the last couple of years?
Listen, we are in so many ways, an improbable thing. We are competing against the world's largest e-commerce company, the world's largest consumer electronics manufacturer, the world's largest bookstore chain, and I think also on some days the world's largest search engine. So all of those together mean you have to do something different. We have no interest in retreating behind the corporate walls and treating this whole exercise as a black box where files go in and money comes out and no one gets to see what goes on inside. We're in the middle of a complete remaking of the book industry, and that is something that we should be doing with publishers, with authors. We should be doing with readers. People should have a sense of how this is all unfolding, and to the extent that we can be out there answering questions, sharing information, making data available so that people have a sense of how this transition is taking place. We think that's better for everyone. More informed publishers more enlightened authors and agents will make better decisions as we go through this period of digital change. And better decisions are good for all of us, especially for us as retailers who are kind of the recipients of those books at the end of the day, and who have to work with those publishers, authors, agents to get those books into the hands of readers.
Mm-hmm. This year at Book Expo, we saw an entire team of people helping with the launch of Writing Life. How is that going so far?
Writing Life has been fantastic. Writing Life is our self-publishing program, and is a perfect illustration of what happens when you give people more information. So Writing Life is a full suite of tools for authors who want to make their books available through Kobo around the world, but it's also a full analytics package to give authors insight into where their books are selling, how they're selling, from a global perspective. So how can you help a self-published author find the markets where their books are starting to grow in popularity, and then allow them to make decisions that will help to capitalize on that opportunity.
Now, speaking of giving out this necessary information to authors and publishers and such, tomorrow at FutureBook you're going to be talking on a couple panels, but primarily about the ebook pricing and the considerations that have to be met when you take into consideration the price of how an ebook will be distributed. So what are you going to talk about tomorrow?
I won't give it all away, but there are some of the parts that I really want to emphasize, both to authors and to publishers, is that there are more than a handful of price points for books now. When we started this whole thing, there was the $9.99 bestseller, and then everything kind of sloped out to either side of it. And now we have this new phenomenon where you have a $9.99 bestseller, you have a $12.99 agency bestseller, and you have a 99-cent sort of bestseller list filler. And those price points have become very popular as authors and publishers have tried to figure out, how do I get those tiny bits of exposure that that ebook retail makes available. Unlike physical bookstores, we don't have tables at the fronts of the stores that a publisher can have access to. We don't have end caps on the end of the aisles. All there really is on so many of, say, our competitors' ebook services is the bestseller list. And so now everything has become optimized on, how do I get into one of those 10 spots in the hopes of turning that into more revenue later. And what it really means is publishers and authors leaving money on the table, as we've seen. That there are ways to price books that can both be attractive to a consumer, can result in comparable levels of sale, but not drag the price of ebooks right down to the floor. And so trying to set the stage for both self-published authors and commercial and traditional publishers to have a more nuanced conversation about how pricing could be still attractive to the consumer, still compelling as a value proposition, but also looking to how to make sure that an author can still make a living selling their ebooks. That's what I'll be talking about tomorrow.
Well, great. We're looking forward to it. So again, this is Mercy Pilkington for GoodeReader in London at FutureBook, talking to Michael Tamblyn from Kobo. Thank you so much.
Thank you.